All right, hello and welcome to WSQ number 43. And today we start our unit on human anatomy. And so over the next few weeks and next dozen or so WSQs, we're going to be talking about the human body and specifically talking about the different structures of the body, how the body functions, how the body works. Today we start by launching out into organ systems and homeostasis. And so today we're going to talk about what are the levels of organization in the body. We've talked about these before, so that should be a quick review. We're going to talk about what are the systems in the human body. There's 11 total organ systems. And so we're going to discuss those and some of the basic functions of each of those systems. And we're going to discuss that word homeostasis, which we've talked about before. We're going to get into that a little bit more today. So let's get started. What we're going to start with today is just an understanding of what are the levels of organization that happen in the human body. And what we've learned in the past, and we'll just continue to learn about, is that there are basically, like all organisms, there are a consistency of cells, tissues, organs, and organ systems. As we can see here in our image, that you do have the human body consists of cells, the human body consists of tissues, the human body consists of organs, and it consists of organ systems. So the example we have below, we have for example, the muscular system. Well, the muscular system is made up of muscle cells. Muscle cells are organized together into muscle tissue. Muscle tissues are organized into the heart, which is an organ. The heart with the blood vessels all make up the circulatory system, and then those 11 systems make up a part of the entire organism, the human body. So we're going to continually see this, and we've talked about this time and time again, so this should be a very simple review for you guys. Cells make up tissues, make up organs, make up organ systems, make up organisms. Now, let's talk about each real quickly in relation to the human body itself. So first of all, you realize, remember, cells are the basic unit of structure and function in a living thing. Okay, these are important because structure, remember, is the design of a cell. This is talking about how it looks, how it's put together, and it's going to help determine its function. Function is what cells carry out, okay, the processes. If you remember in the past, when we talk about the structure, we're talking about what? This is what we call the anatomy. Right? And when we talk about function, we're talking about anybody remember? The physiology. And I am not good at writing. This is with my mouse, that's why. Okay? So, when you put those two together, that's what you get. The physiology is referring to the process that helps keep us alive. The function, or the anatomy, is what actually allows an organism, which actually allows an organism to function properly. And the human body, remember, we consist of 100 trillion cells. So we have trillions of cells working together, anatomically designed in such a way so that they can carry out specific physiological properties. Now here's just an image that shows you some of the types of cells that are found in the human body. We have nerve cells, we have muscle cells, and even within muscle cells we have striated or voluntary, smooth, involuntary, and cardiac. So this is skeletal muscles, smooth muscles, and cardiac muscles. We have bone cells that make up our bones. We have gland cells that secrete things like sweat and oil. We have blood cells, red blood cells that carry oxygen, and lymphocytes, which help defend and protect our body, white blood cells, monocytes, neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, and we have reproductive cells, things like sperm and the egg or the ovum. So even within the human body, there's a wide variety of cells whose purpose is varied depending upon their function. Remember, anatomy determines physiology. Okay, and physiology determines anatomy. They're connected to one another. Besides cells, we then come to what are known as tissues. Remember, a tissue is where you have a group of specialized cells that have the same function working together. Those are tissues. The human body contains 4 basic tissues. Okay, you can see in this image right here, these are the 4 basic tissues that the human body has. It has 1, muscle tissues. Muscle tissue are like up here. Muscle tissue is tissue that's designed to help us move. Okay, there's actually 3 types of muscle tissue. As I said in the last one, 3 types of muscle cells too. The muscle tissue is skeletal muscle, which helps us move from place to place and move our arms. There's cardiac muscle, which is our heart, which beats and pumps blood through the body. And there is also what's known as smooth muscle. And smooth muscle is found in the linings of our blood vessels. It's also found inside of our stomach and our intestines, which actually helps the movement of food through our digestive tract, or helps with the movement of blood through our blood vessels. You have nervous tissue, a second one. This would be nervous tissue. Nervous tissue are tissues that direct and control processes of the body. So our nerves all connect together and allow signals to pass throughout the body, tell us what muscles to move, what hormones to produce, what functions to occur. You have connective tissues. Connective tissues provide support for the body and connect parts together. This would be like ligaments and tendons. The purpose of connective tissues is, in some cases, like the cartilage that's found on the ends of your bones. Well, it's meant to pad. So let's say your hip bone. So as it sits inside of as the femur bone sits inside of the hip, there's a pad there that keeps it from rubbing right bone on bone. That's a connective tissue. And then lastly, there is the 4th type, epithelial tissues. These are tissues that cover and protect the body structures. This would be like your skin. Okay, their design is to protect all those internal organs and internal structures. So tissues, remember the human body, tissues are specialized cells that have the same function and work together. And there's 4 basic tissues. Here's another image that shows the tissues just in a little different way. You'll notice that we have, for the muscle tissue, we have skeletal, cardiac, and smooth, right? All muscle, but different types of muscle. Then we have nervous tissue. Then we have connective tissues. And then lastly, we have epithelial tissues like our skin. Excuse me. Now, so you have cells, then you have tissues, and then tissues that work together are what we call organs. They make up organs. Okay, now, what I want to explain with organs is to understand that the structure of organs are composed of different types of tissues that do specific jobs. So I just showed a couple images to help you see. These are all organs, right? The eye, for example. The eyeball is an organ. Okay, it's a sensory organ. Its main goal is to take in information, okay, and to turn that information using our brain and the optic nerve into visual data that we can determine all kinds of things with. Okay, so the eye is made up of different tissues. Okay, in the back of the eye, we've got things like the retina. Okay, and the retina's job is to actually capture and record the data that comes through our eye. Well, it's also made up of like the lens, which allows light and focuses light as it comes through. There's blood vessels that are a part of that organ, but all these tissues form together and work to do what? So we can see. The heart is an organ that's composed of muscular tissue. It's composed of nerve tissue. It's composed of blood vessel tissue. And the purpose of the heart, all those things working together, they have one job. What's their job? To pump blood throughout the body. The brain is an organ made up of nervous tissue, made up of blood vessels, made up of other tissues, and the purpose of the brain is to be able to actually cause conscious movement. And we could talk about the kidneys, we could talk about the stomach and digestive tract, talk about the lungs, we could talk about the uterus, in which a baby is born. We could even talk about the tooth or the large intestine. Now, each of these have different structural designs and different functions. But all these organs that we see here ultimately are made up of specific tissues that have different tissue types but do specific jobs. They're all working together to create or to finish some goal. And so our heart pumps blood. That's the goal of our heart. Our heart's job is not to digest food. The brain's job is to help us think and make choices and decisions. The brain's job is not to pump blood. The lungs bring in oxygen and exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide in our body, in our bloodstream. The lungs' job is not to protect us from stuff getting inside of our body, like the skin. So each structure, each organ has a different type and purpose. Now, what that brings us to are organ systems. There are 11 organ systems, and you are going to need to know all of them. So you're going to want to learn them. Many of these you already know. We can break this down. I put this little diagram together. You can break it down really into 3 parts. So here's part 1, here's part 2, and here's part 3. So if I talk about the 11 organ systems, there's 3 that provide structure and allow movement. Those systems are the integumentary system, that's our skin, the muscular system, those are our muscles, and the skeletal system, that's our bones. Those 3 systems provide structure, allow movement. They're the first 3. We have 2 systems in our body, okay, the nervous and the endocrine, that their whole job in the body is to actually control the body processes. So these 2, the nervous, okay, control body processes. Okay, and what's interesting is the nervous system does it quickly, and the endocrine system does it slowly. Okay, this endocrine system would be like hormones. The nervous system, of course, would be like our spinal nerves, and this is all of our nerves that run through the body and our brain. And then you have 6 other organ systems that carry out the life processes. Okay, so this would be the respiratory system. That would be like our lungs, our air passageway that bring in oxygen and exchange gases. The digestive system, which breaks down food, right? The reproductive system, which not only helps us develop and mature, but helps us have children, right? Offspring. You have the immune system, which protects us from disease. You have the... Boy, my writing is horrible. The excretory system, which gets rid of waste, okay, liquid waste products. And you have the circulatory system, which transports blood and nutrients and all those things. So when you look at this big list of 11 organ systems, you should recognize that you've got 11: integumentary, muscular, skeletal, nervous, endocrine, respiratory, digestive, reproductive, circulatory, excretory, immune. Okay, and I'll have a cool little thing in class we'll talk about to help you remember all of these. And we're going to talk about each of them individually very quickly and what they do. So here's all 11. Okay, you can see all the different organ systems. And this is depicting like the muscular systems made up of all the skeletal muscles and smooth and cardiac muscles of the body, okay, to a certain degree. The nervous system, all the nerves of your body. The circulatory system, all the blood vessels of your body. The endocrine system, all the glands in the body that secrete hormones. The lymphatic system, which is this one's the only one that we haven't talked about. It's a little bit different. We'll explain that. That's actually a passageway or transport system that transports liquid and fluids in your body. And your immune system, it's connected directly to your immune system. So a lot of times the lymphatic system is the same. It'll often be exchanged and called the immune system at the same time. The digestive system, which breaks down food and gets rid of it in your body. The respiratory system, urinary, reproductive, integumentary, and skeletal. So these 3 organ systems that I'm going to talk about first, we're going to break them down and hit them quickly. The first one is structure and movement. What are the ones that deal with structure and movement? Well, we already said that's the integumentary, or the skin, the skeletal, our bones, and the muscular. Let's just kind of overview them very quickly. The integumentary is made up of our skin, our hair, and our nails. And the purpose of the integumentary is to protect the body and remove waste. Protect the body and remove waste. Let's do this. There we go. Protect the body, remove waste. And how it removes waste from the body actually is one of the ways is our sweat. Okay, the sweat glands and oil glands in our body actually secrete off waste. You have the skeletal system. Skeletal system is made of bones and connective tissues, so tendons, ligaments, cartilage. Their job, there's multiples, but here's a couple of them: support the body, give structure, protect the organs. So you think about your skull, which protects your brain and your internal organs of the head. If you talk about your rib cage and your sternum and your vertebrae, connect the spinal cord, protect the spinal cord, protect the heart and lungs and liver. Okay, that's the job of the skeletal. And then the muscular, which is made up of all of our body muscles, okay, skeletal muscles, smooth muscles, cardiac muscles, they move the body. That's their job, to move the body. We also have the body systems which carry out body processes. So remember, we have those that create movement and allow us to have structure. Then you have the 6 organ systems that carry out processes of life. The circulatory system, the first one, its whole job is to transport food, transport oxygen, transport waste, and this is made of the heart and blood vessels. The respiratory system, its job is to exchange gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, and it's made of the lungs and the passageways where air, so it'd be our nasal passageways, our mouth. The digestive system's job is to break down food into energy, and this is made up of things like our stomach and our intestines, our liver, our pancreas, the mouth, the esophagus, and it ultimately removes solid waste as well from the body. The excretory, which removes liquid waste from the body and is made of the kidneys and the bladder. The reproductive, which produces sex cells, sperm and eggs, and regulates our physical development and helps us have children. And then lastly, the immune system, which protects the body from disease and is made up of things like white blood cells, antibodies, red blood cells, etc. Okay, not red blood cells, sorry, white blood cells, etc. So really important that you just, and this is just overviews. We're going to address each of these in great detail as we go throughout our study of anatomy, and we'll spend time on each system. So right now I just want you to know what they are, what they include, and what they generally do. The last 2 organ systems are the nervous and the endocrine, and these are organ systems that control body processes. So they're in charge of actually controlling what happens. So, for example, the nervous, okay, the nervous system, which includes our brain, our spinal cord, all the sense organs in our body, this job is to process stimuli and cause the body to respond. And it would include things like our brain, our spinal cord, and our sensory nerves, or sensory organs. The endocrine system, job is to maintain internal conditions that you need to live and function, and this is made up of hormones that are produced in glands. So glands like the adrenal gland, glands like the pancreas, glands like the pituitary gland, in males the testes, and females the ovaries. These are the types of organs that we're talking about that are in the endocrine gland. And in the case of endocrine and nervous, again, what are they trying to do? Their job is to help control body processes. So you put those all together and you have all 11 organ systems. The last thing I want to talk to you about is homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body's process by which an organism's internal environment is kept stable in spite of changes in the external environment. And I'm not going to talk a lot about this because we will address this in class, but things like sweating and shivering. I mean, you think about sweating. What's the purpose of sweating? Sweating is a means by which we can cool the body, right? So the actual process of sweating, okay, allows the body temperature to be regulated and to be cooled. Well, what about shivering? Shivering is actually a way that we are trying to heat the body. When you shiver, what happens is your muscles start to shiver and shake, and that shaking is the attempt is to produce heat. And so in both of these, their job, whether it's sweating going in one direction, shivering in the other, it's to try to keep the body stable in spite of changes in the external environment. That's why I could take you could be in a cold classroom one period and a hot classroom the next. And the reality is your body temperature is going to be relatively similar, even though you may be in a really hot class and a really cold class. And the reason why is because your body will make changes to keep and regulate that body temperature as it is. So that is WSQ number 43. I'm glad you've watched it. Hopefully you've taken some good notes. I know there's a lot of information. Remember, this is all just general to start out. We're trying to get an overview, and in our next WSQ we'll start to talk about specific body systems, organ systems, and how they affect us. So thanks so much. Talk to you later.